Good evening, beautiful woman. Welcome to Isaya's Inspiring Evenings, a podcast full of goddess series, witches' secrets, colors of women and fairy seasons to integrate serenity, abundance, joy, and magic into your life. I am Isaya Bell, creatrix, magical pragmatic inspiration mentor, tech goddess teacher, and traveling priestess. And this podcast aims to accompany you for peaceful and inspiring evenings. Isaya's Inspiring Evenings has had various iterations and styles and is published irregularly. Subscribe to the podcast on the platform of your choice to be informed of the publication of each new episode. If you like this podcast, please support it by leaving stars, blue thumbs, and reviews on whatever platform you listen to me. In 2024, there are going to be 5 series in it, for now. All different, all aiming to inspire the audience, all telling stories, each complementing each other. One series, titled Women Lighting the Way, is about women's stories, centering around the past or future speakers from the various Women Lighting the Way summits, adding to the virtual library of women's stories and providing a much-needed counterpoint to the many men's stories going around in our world of patriarchy. This is one of those episodes, and I'm happy to invite you to listen to the story of Lisa Jara, recorded in 2023, entitled The Quiet Revolution: How Cyclical Living Helped Me Go from Body Shame to Body Trust. Enjoy!
Hi, hello, and welcome. So good to have you here on the Summit of Women Lighting the Way 2023. And of course, with me for my talk. And whether this is the first one you're listening to or whether you've already explored this wild plethora of really powerful stories of the other women and participants, it's like, I'm really honored to be part of this again and as an alumna. And it's incredible what Isaya and Chris have brought together here. So I hope you are already deeply inspired, or you will become deeply inspired with my talk, with the rest of the talks. And this one is going to be about the quiet revolution and how cyclical living really helped me to go from body shame to body trust. And it was a long journey. I am Lisa. I'm a trauma-informed menstrual wisdom specialist and also a coach through life crises. And for me, it's really important in my work that women and menstruating folks feel at home in their body again. For many, the body hasn't been a safe place to be. We like to go into our minds to escape the body, the here and now. I help them release shame and trauma, also to cherish their cycle. And that's regardless of whether it's the menstrual cycle and they are still menstruating, or whether it's the moon cycle when they don't have physical organs present or they've already crossed into menopause. Because I want you to develop this unshakable trust in yourself, in your innate wisdom and your innate power, this personal power from within, so you can make confident choices and design a life that feels like true to you and meaningful for you uniquely. But before we dive into the story of how I got here in the first place, I like to do these little check-ins. So if you feel comfortable, maybe just close your eyes. I will close mine. If it doesn't feel comfortable, you can also soften your gaze and maybe look towards a place downwards in front of you. Some way to attune to your inner world for just a moment. Breathing in together and making the out breath as long as possible. Feeling yourself sink into the furniture that you're sitting on. and the ground that's holding you. And just check in with yourself. Where am I located right now? How does my body feel? Do I maybe need to make slight adjustments in my position so my body can feel even more comfortable? What day of my cycle am I on? And by the way, if your brain wants to freak out because you don't know the answer to these questions, it's not about knowing the answers. It's just about listening whether or not something is coming up. Just being curious. If nothing comes up, that's perfectly fine. How is your energy level today? Or how is my energy level today? What is my mood like today? What is my mental capacity like today? Am I more communicative, inwards, focused, all over the place? What phase is the moon in? What season do we have where I live? What stage of my life am I in right now? What projects, even life projects, do I have right now? And how can I honor all of this today with everything that's going on in my day? And then allow your body to find some kind of movement to come back into the present moment. Maybe it's rolling the shoulders, or stretching, or yawning. And whenever you feel ready, you can open your eyes again. Welcome back. Yeah, I like to do these check-ins, and I definitely could do them more frequently than I do. But I like how it makes us aware of all the different cycles and flavors that are going on in just a single day. And it makes us appreciate and cherish what we are able to do and how to honor our experience on a daily basis. And of course, I haven't always talked about these things, thought about these things, or even checked in with myself. This journey of, first of all, body shame started when I was about 13 or 14. I had always been a very slim child as a child. And then around 13, I was starting to gain weight quite a bit in early puberty. And there were certainly comments in my family, some of which I have suppressed. Like I just know from my mother when she told me that her at the time boyfriend made a remark about me with me being in the room of how she should watch my eating habits and how I was growing too fat. My grandma certainly made comments that I should watch my weight to, also be able to attract people. While at the same time stuffing chocolate into my mouth almost because, well, she loved me and I loved cookies or chocolate. And then also my mother, while she was never, like she would never have said anything about me towards me. But she was criticizing her own body quite a bit. Like that was this with outspoken words, this learning of you're not supposed to be happy with your body. You're supposed to criticize it all the time, and the wrinkles and the weight and the thighs and the whatever it is. And I became really afraid of comments. others could make. Now, they never really made them towards me, but like when I was going through the city with my mom, she would make like really nasty comments about people and their, especially women, and their shapes and weight. And I was afraid that people would ever talk about me like that behind my back. And I remember vividly this one point where it changed. And I sat in the bathtub taking a shower. And I looked at my thighs and I was like, you are such a fat elephant. You've got elephant legs. You're disgusting. And that was the moment where I made a commitment to lose weight. And I did. I did it really fast. Like I lost 8 or 10 kilos in a month, 2 months maybe, which is not healthy. It's not recommended and it's not healthy. But it, like, the interesting thing is even when I was at a lower weight, this imagination of me having elephant legs, it's still here with me to this present day. And now I'm 36 and that was at 14. And this is this body dysmorphia that often happens and that you see in many people who have eating disorders. Like when I look into my mirror, I see something completely different than my husband sees, for example, when he looks at me. And yeah, I learned basically that my body is a thing that needs to be controlled as best as you can, and that never really does what it's supposed to do according to like fitting into a certain shape, into a certain size. And this quick losing of weight had me spiral into a journey with anorexia, where I was anxiously watching my body, my weight, the calorie intake, going on all sorts of diets, even though at that time I had already lost weight and I was slim from the outside, but I didn't see it that way. And with the anorexia, I also developed something that's now called orthorexia, which is this obsession with healthy eating, where healthy depends on whatever the person has learned. So like what I consider healthy doesn't necessarily really have to be healthy, but like my mind was obsessed with healthy. And also movement, and combining eating little, eating only certain foods, and movement, it was a really bad mix. And also it felt really good. You know, it felt like the first time finally I had some control over something. I could control what went into my body and what didn't. I could control even my weight. And that was also about the time where my OCD started, obsessive compulsive disorder. And all of them, the eating disorder, the OCD, they all have an element of control. It's tied to suppressing emotions, suppressing even the thoughts. Like when you are exhausted from all the sports and little eating you do, your mind doesn't even have so much capacity to criticize you anymore. So you have kind of some kind of peace, which is a very unhealthy peace. But yeah, that was my life. And it went on and off over the course of my life. I certainly had also periods where I felt held and good. Like around 16, I got to know a bunch of guys who became my closest friends and who are my closest friends to this day. And whenever I was with them, I felt so held and seen and cared for that the anorexia lessened and I didn't have as many problems with it. But yeah, when I look back at some of the pictures I took, I feel really emotional and my heart goes out to that girl who was just constantly afraid of other people's judgments, of her own mind's judgments, who didn't feel like she belonged. and who was just lost and totally disconnected from her body, trying to press her body into a shape that wasn't meant for this body. Maybe you know, having like I wanted this gap between the thighs. My body isn't set up for that. I can hunger myself down as much as I want to. I will never have that gap because my body has a different physical structure. And by now I can say that is okay. The other fact that why I felt like I wasn't connected to my cycle either, because I went on the pill with I think 16 or so, and so I didn't have a real menstrual cycle, wasn't connected to that. Had to come off it in 2013 when I had a pulmonary embolism and almost died, which could have been a wake-up call, but it wasn't. Like, I didn't take it to heart, really. And then it all changed in 2017. That was the time when I decided, and at the time my OCD was really bad, I decided to go into a mental health clinic, and I've talked about that journey on the last Women Lighting the Way Summit last year. And at the same time, I came across a book, and this book is called Goddess Wisdom by Tanishka. And I kid you not, my whole life changed. It sounds dramatic, and it really was in retrospect. At the time, it certainly didn't feel like that, but I couldn't have known that this book and the thinking and what it entailed and where I went afterwards would change the way I see life. It would inform my work and change my life completely, including my work. And it helped me remember my spiritual side, my connection to the earth and the universe and the cycles. And it also awakened me to my feminist side, which I didn't even know existed. You know, I didn't understand what feminism was about. And I started exploring and defining it for myself. And what also helped was that I started working for a women's rights organization, a feminist women's rights organization. But yeah, this book really was at the foundation of this change. And regarding the spirituality aspect, I've always been spiritually connected. I have Pisces moon, and I'm emotionally fluent and psychically attuned. But I was never encouraged in my family of origin, rather suppressed. It was belittled to, I don't know, pull oracle cards was like, how can you trust that? It's, yeah. Only the rational mind was cherished in my family. And now, after reading this book, it all came back to me, and I learned to embrace it. It was a leap of faith to start embracing it and coming out of the closet and telling people, hey, I have oracle cards and I love that. And I love them. And I have all these, I'm highly sensitive and I can feel energy and emotions and all of that. And over the course of several years, I remembered different traditions and wisdom that I think has been there all along. Like, I started paying attention to the moon. I went to yoga classes and especially learned about the yogic philosophy and the yogic wisdom. I learned about the Celtic and Germanic traditions and of the Native American wisdom. And I also learned about my menstrual cycle, which was also touched on in the book, and how the cycle has always been revered as the blood mysteries, revered for its healing powers. And a woman or menstruator's like cyclical makeup was cherished by those peoples who lived in tune with the earth, like the Native Americans, but also many other peoples that still, or tribes that still exist today and who live in tune with the earth and with nature and nature's rhythms. And like at the beginning, it was really strange when I learned that people would like bleed on straw that would be put out on the fields as fertilizer, or that they would collect their blood. I was like, how can one? And, now 6 years later, I'm here and I'm doing the same. So it was a journey, and I love it. I loved every step of the way. And even this almost relieving thought that when we cross over into menopause, we still cycle. We just go back to the moon cycle, which is the blueprint cycle our menstrual cycle is shaped after. And so it feels really reassuring that it will stay with me until the day I die. And through that, I also learned about these major life transitions in a woman's or menstruator's body, like menarche, the first bleed, the motherhood and what it entails, then also the crossing into menopause and then into the wisdom years. And I learned to cherish each cycle, each phase for its powers and gifts. And I also understood that we are dying every month. At dark moon, new moon, or during menstruation, we die a little death, and we have the chance for rebirth every month. And it felt so right when I read about that in that book. It like something clicked in me, and I was, finally. Now it all makes sense. I knew that all along. It was already stored in my bones. And I definitely want to show it to others how this wisdom lives in their bones as well. And it helped me be okay with my body's changes over the course of a month. I wouldn't freak out anymore that in 1 week I would gain weight or feel bloated, because I knew, I'm just before my period. So without changing anything, wait a week and I'll feel differently. And I did. And so I could be much more compassionate and appreciative of my body and the different changes she goes through every month, like week by week, day by day. And I understood that I didn't have to be the same or show up the same or be as productive every day as society sometimes wants us to believe. And also understanding in my spirituality, it's very earth-based, cycle-based, and it's this descent, this monthly descent, a yearly descent. When we go with the winter solstice would be the yearly descent and akin to menstruation. And also that we can use the wisdom of our monthly cycling. When we cycle consciously, we know how to transition. And then we also know how to transition more smoothly when there are these bigger changes in life, these bigger life transitions that I became really fascinated by. Of course, like menopause, but also motherhood or emptiness when the children are out of the house, but even just having a relationship end. All these bigger and smaller transitions, we can move through them more easily when we have learned how to transition month by month by month. And I also woke up to my feminist side. And I want to preface this because I believe that feminism is misunderstood by many. And the early feminists certainly had white women's rights in mind and not all women's rights in mind. And for me, feminism is for everybody. And if it's not for everybody, it's not feminism. So it's not just for women. It's not just for men. It's as much for the non-binary people and all marginalized groups. I want a world where everyone can express themselves, regardless of gender, skin, sexual preferences, religion, etc., without having to fear for their life. And I sometimes call the feminists the witches of our times because, we can't be burnt at the stake. Like who were the witches? They were the wise women, the herb women who still lived in tune with the earth, and also men and non-binary people, not just women, of course, but what were those who thought differently to what the general public and society believed, or what the people in power wanted the people to believe. And so they were burned. Today we can't be burned at the stake anymore, so we get like shitstorms on the internet when we speak up for people's rights. And through this book, God is Wisdom, I understood that it's all set up. It's all made up. This whole structure, it's a systemic oppression that's happening to all of us, and of course, especially to marginalized folks. And it keeps us, for example, fretting about our weight and our body size and body shape, just to keep us occupied with that, so that we do not think, like, access the true power that we have, that our bodies hold, that our cycles hold. And like, we believe it's something wrong with our body. But when we go underneath that, like, we have so much power, and there are people who are afraid of us using that power for good in the world, right? And whether that's weight or wrinkles, we obsess about our body. And yeah, it's a system set up to have us comparing ourselves to one another, especially women against women, or people socialized as women against others, and to not see the true power of like holding hands and like stepping up, standing up for ourselves, and saying no to the systemic oppressive structures that we live in. And I also realized how the dark and the taboo is tabooed in our world. Like the autumn and winter, like we are supposed to show up in spring and summer, be outwards, be happy, show a happy face, go after the love and the light, and never look at the darkness. But the darkness is one half of the cycle. And nature needs it as much as we do, because we are a part of nature. And yeah, that's why I'm set to shine a light really on these dark aspects, the tabooed aspects. That menopause is not an illness. It's a beautiful life transition. That motherhood can be challenging, really challenging. That many people experience miscarriages, and it's a hard experience. And like, nobody talks about them, these things. And I want to, because they teach us something about life. And I want people to know they are not alone, and to help them move through in a way and at a pace that works for them, not at a pace that society says we should, like, brush things aside, for example. And it also made me aware that we see our bodies as a wild animal that needs to be tamed. As I said, I try to press my body into a certain shape or form or weight, because I feel like it's this wild animal that I don't understand. But when we start listening to and understanding, building a connection to our bodies, it's not this wild, untamed animal anymore, but we understand the rhythms, and we can have a relationship. And yeah, it's a little bit like the colonizers when they, like, that's what I always say, is like, when they went to Africa, they saw people who were in tune with themselves, with their own nature and with nature, and who were moving with that, and they were afraid because they wanted to control from the mind down. And so similarly, we have started seeing our bodies as wild animals. And so this whole process deepened myself, and I understood that, like, feminism and spirituality are not separate, and that I am a feminist mystic. Like, I really identify as that. And through my journey, I've kind of unknowingly started my quiet revolution. The title of this talk, for me, it's about looking within to our own wisdom, our own power, being in touch and in tune with our own body. And by doing that, like, I'm not one to go out and smash the patriarchy, because when we do that, we leave a power vacuum that needs to be filled. And unless we have something better to put in place, it will be filled with something that we know already, which is we would just repeat the same structures again. So my quiet revolution, powerful revolution, is about withdrawing, turning within, looking for the wisdom inside, living our lives according to our own truth. And so we withdraw from these structures. And because they have nothing to uphold them anymore, they will crumble, they will fall. And we have already practiced to live a different way, in a different way, to live according to our own inner truth. And when we do that, I believe that we are very satisfied with our life. And then we also allow other people to live their own life according to their truth, which might look different to ours, and that's okay. And yeah, this, to me, it's really at the base of, or at the heart, is like, let's look within for the power, for the treasures, for the light. And then these structures will crumble and we have something better already in place. And that's why for me, it's both a spiritual and a feminist practice. And also revolution, the fun fact that Isaya made me aware of, revolution means turning around, revolving around. And I say, like, in our cycle, we've got 4 different phases, like the seasons of nature. And they revolve around. And what's in the center? And the center is you, the true you, your essence. And the cycle phases, they are just flavors, and they revolve around us, the truth. And yeah, and now I'm even in my professional life going into the sphere of women's health, women's pelvic health, because I see this need for women to trust themselves, trust their body, not be afraid of their body, or think there's something wrong with them, or lose hope when a doctor says, sorry, can't do anything, you can't be healed, take painkillers, take pads, but just get used to that situation. I don't want that. There is hope. There are ways to heal from incontinence. There are ways to heal from endometriosis. There are ways to heal menstrual pain, menopausal issues. And yeah, I don't subscribe to what they are telling me. So I am venturing on this path to bring more hope to women and menstruating folks who might feel hopeless and powerless at this moment. But I know they are not, because I can see their light. Yeah, and all of this came into being after I started reading this book and being in the clinic. And I realized 2 life principles. Everything is about relationships. It's always about the relationship to myself, or the relationship to my body, the relationship to another person, even the relationship to money, the relationship to time that most of us have a strained relationship with, the relationship to our belongings. And the second, it's always a process. It's always a journey. It doesn't come overnight, and it's not a one and done deal. It's a practice. It's a journey. And for my way from body shame to body trust, I have understood that in the clinic already, that when you look at war, and I was at war with my body, like, heavily, you cannot go from war to peace in like one go. There must first be some kind of truce, ceasing to fight, and then maybe a slow getting to know one another, understanding the relationship building again, right? Like understanding what the other thinks and why, developing a relationship. And then through developing this relationship, mutual respect can come, and acceptance. And then at some point, trust. And when trust will develop, maybe at some point, There will even be love when I think of my body, like loving my body, and maybe not. But I can say that right now I am at this stage of trust and trusting my body, not all the time, not always, but in general. And knowing that it is a journey has helped take out the pressure of having to do it immediately. And I definitely have now a better relationship with my body. I respect her cycles, and I trust her. And like my best example for that happened only recently, of that and what embodied cyclical living for me means. Because what cyclical living for many people is like, oh, you have to align your life with your cycle, whether that's the personal cycle or the moon cycle. No, for me, it's about bringing your cyclical experience, like with the check-in. So how am I today and how can I honor that in my life? That's what it's about, like bringing your cyclical experience into the life you have. And yes, I certainly do plan a few things around my cycle, and also life happens. And then what? It's not about eating the right kind of foods in one phase or doing the right, quote unquote, kind of sports in one phase, because that's again a patriarchal setup of there is only a right and a wrong. And I don't subscribe to that. Again, embodied cyclical living is checking in where you're at today and bringing that into the life you have with everything that's on your plate that day. And for me, I recently moved apartments, and I have OCD, as I shared, and moving apartments is one thing and doing it with OCD is quite another. And it shook up my whole world. I decided to let go part of the OCD beforehand. So I really wanted to have it all shaken up, and it did get shaken up. I say that my whole world was turned upside down and inside out, and that's what it felt like, and it hurt. And I was lying in bed one night at the weekend where I should have been bleeding, because I used to bleed with the dark moon for the last 5 years. And I lay in bed and I was like, that pain, that's ovulation pain. And I was like, what's happening? Has my cycle shifted 180? So, and I was asking my husband, what shall I do? And he was like, maybe your cycle is just as confused as you are with all the shaking up. And I felt into my body. I closed my eyes and I was like, yeah, this is ovulation. My body stepped out of time for 2 weeks, which happened to be the 2 weeks of eclipse season. And I'm now bleeding with the full moon. And I can trust my body. And like, it was like that. The cycle just took it up where it was left off. And like, now I've just reversed my cycle and it feels good. I trust that my body knows what's best for us. And that's why it made the choice to like shift the cycle. And this is really, it allows me peace and trust. And yeah, that's my example of embodied cyclical living, trusting your body first and foremost to guide you through life. When nothing in your life seems to make sense, you always have your body and your cycle to give you some kind of direction and rhythm and stability in the permanence of change, because life is change. And yeah, that's my journey from body shame to body trust. And if you feel ready to go on this journey, a first start would be to grab my free womb wisdom practice that comes to you through signing up, registering for my talk, which you have. And it's a first step to start build this relationship, to start looking at what's there. And because your womb is your place of personal power and your place of creativity. It's where all life is born from, whether that's a physical life or whether that's your project, your business, whatever it is you do, your endeavor. And if you want to dive a little or a lot deeper, I've got a special offer for you, a sacred cycle deep dive where we together get in touch with your cycle and really listen to what your cycle has to tell you for this phase of your life. And you can ask questions and all of that. And there is a special offer for you as attendee to my talk. So keep your eyes open for that. And of course, I'm here if you experience a challenge, both with your body or you're moving through a challenging life transition. I'm here if you would like some support. Because I believe that we are all here to remind each other of the power and the wisdom that already lies within. And there are moments where we need someone else to reflect our own life back to the other when we forget. Because we will forget our life, let's be honest, our light. Let's be honest, we will forget it. And we can remember. We can remember cycle by cycle by cycle who we are and why we're here. And with all of that, I wish you a beautiful day and send so much love to you. Bye.
That's it for this episode. The next one is still in creation. Thanks for listening, and don't forget, if you want to support this podcast, share, subscribe, and leave stars, blue thumbs, and a review on whichever platform you listen to. If you want to be accompanied in the change processes that life offers you, if you want to live a goddess life daily and participate in the awakening of feminine energy in the world, know the secrets of witches, and apply the rituals of fairies in your daily life, contact me on my website isayabel.com. You can also subscribe to my newsletter to be informed of all the news in the real and virtual world of Isayabel. You will, of course, find this podcast on all platforms: Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, etc., but also on YouTube and on my website, isayabel.com, on the podcast page.